Hi everyone, this week in maths we are going to be learning about fractions. Fractions just mean parts, so fractions are parts of something. So in your book it starts with thirds, but first I just want to go through halves because I think halves is one that people understand. They understand having half of something and somebody else having the other half, but I just want to start there because it's easier to do that than to go straight to thirds. So here is my circle and I'm going to pretend that it's a pizza. So half, would mean I'm getting this half and you're getting that half. We have half of the pizza each. But what it actually means is one part out of two parts. So altogether in this pizza, there are two parts, only because I'm cutting it here down the middle. So I've turned it into a pizza with only two parts. And if someone has this part, they have one part out of two. And if somebody has this part, they have one part out of two. So this same pizza, if I didn't cut it into halves, I could have cut it into thirds. So this time I want to share this pizza with 3 people altogether. So this person has one part out of 3, that's 1/3. This person has one part out of 3, that's another third. And this person has one part out of 3, that's another third. If somebody ate all of the parts, so if they ate one part plus another part plus another part, they would have eaten 3 parts out of 3, which is the same as a whole. So they ate the whole pizza. I'm going to show you an example with other fractions. So this is the same pizza again. This time I've cut it into quarters, so that means 4. And this pizza is getting shared between 4 people. So this person has one part out of 4. This person has one part out of 4. This person has one part out of 4. And this person has one part out of 4. So if one person ate all of the parts, they would have eaten 4 parts out of 4. So they would have eaten the whole pizza. The last one that I'm going to show you is with fifths. This is the same pizza, except this time it's being split between 5 people. So this is 1 part out of 5 or 1/5, 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 1 part out of 5 or 1/5. If somebody ate every single slice, they would have eaten 5/5, which means they ate one whole pizza. So the teachers usually say one whole. If you imagine that it's a pizza, I think it's easier. You ate one whole pizza. If you ate 2 slices, you ate 2/5, because there's 5 pieces altogether and you ate 2 of them out of the 5. If you had 3 of them, you would have here 3/5. All it means is 3 parts out of 5 parts, because there's 5 parts altogether, and this would be 3 of them. So if they told me to colour in 3 parts, I'd colour in this, this, and this, and that will show how much of the pizza I ate if I ate 3/5, and there would be 1/2 left, and that would give me one whole. Before I go on to the book again, I just want to show you. Here are all different examples of 1/2, because 1/2 could be of anything. It's not always going to be a pizza. It could be anything. So when you have 1/2, you have exactly half the amount of the whole. So 3/6 is half, because 3 is half of 6. 4/8 is half, because 4 is half of 8. 8/16 is half, because 8 is half of 16. 2/4 is half, because 2 is half of 4, and all the way down. See, even as big as 50/100ths is half, because 50 is half of 100. So to think of something else other than pizza or cake, let's say I had 100 pencils and somebody in the class took 50 of my pencils. That means that they would have taken half of the pencils that I have, and I would only have 50 left. Same with a whole. No matter what the number is, one whole means that you have taken, or you have all of the parts. So if you've taken 9 parts out of 9, that's one whole. 2 parts out of 2, that's one whole. 3 parts out of 3, that's 1 whole. Even 1 part out of 1, if something's only in 1 part and you take the whole part, you've taken all of it, you've taken the whole. So 6 out of 6, or 6/6, 7 out of 7, or 7/7 is going to be 1 whole. So I think people get a little bit confused with fractions because you would say 2/3 or 5/6 or 3/8 or whatever. But if you think about it as instead 3 parts out of 8, I think it's a little bit easier to understand because we're just working with parts. Okay, so in your book we are starting on page 41 and we are starting with thirds. So question 1 says, what fraction is coloured part 1 blue and part 2 green? So what that means is, for question 1, I'm just going to see if I can balance this. For question 1, rub these off. It wants to know what part of the fraction is coloured firstly blue and then secondly green. So with this here, I'm going to pretend it's a pizza. So with this pizza here, they want to know what part is blue and what part is green. So I'm going to go 1A part 1. That's the way they want you to write it. If you want to say 1A blue equals green equals, you can't either. So they want to know how many are blue. So first of all, have a look and see how many are blue. We can see that 2 of them are blue. So I'm going to put a small 2 up here. So 2 parts are blue out of how many parts altogether? 1, 2, 3, 3. So 2/3 of that shape is blue, or the easier way to think about it is 2 parts out of 3 parts are blue. Then they want to know how many parts are green. Let's have a look. This one. Just 1 part is green. Put it down 1. 1 out of how many? 1, 2, 3, still 3. So 1 part out of 3 is green, or 1/3 of that shape is green. And then if you look at it together, 2 plus 1 would give us 3. So that would be all the parts all together. That would be 3 out of the 3 parts. And we figured out the colours of it. So I do think thinking of parts is easier than thinking of 2/3 and 1/3. And if you wanted, instead of doing this, you could do 1A up there, and you could do blue equals and green equals. That might make more sense than doing the I and the other one. So that's how to do question 1. Now on question 2, it requires a little bit of drawing. So it wants you to colour 1/3. It's already divided into thirds. So you are going to colour 1 part out of 3. That's what it's asking you. 1 part out of 3. You're going to colour it whatever colour you want. So you draw this in and you colour it in. This one's going to be easy as well. Now, this one might be a little bit more confusing because it's asking you to colour 1 part out of 3. Except if you count the parts, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 altogether. So what you have to do is figure out how you're going to divide this shape into thirds. So if I wanted to break this shape into 3, or if I had 3 people who wanted some of this cake, they would have to get the same amount each. With fractions, has to be the same amount. So you can either do it by looking at it and seeing, okay, one person will get this, one person will get this, one person will get this. And that will be 1 whole line, 1 whole line, 1 whole line. Or you can do it this way, 1 whole line, 1 whole line, 1 whole line. So if you're colouring 1/3 of that, you're going to colour in this, because you're colouring in 1 line out of 3 lines, 1 part out of 3. The other way to do it, if you want to do your tables, you can check how many times does 3 fit into 9. 3, 6, 9, 3 times. So that means that they get 3 pieces each. So 3, 3, 3. Most people will be able to do it just by looking and imagining how they divide it if it was a cake or something like that. So I was dividing that cake exactly into 3s It doesn't matter that it's already cut. The first person will get this much, the second person will get this much, and the third person will get this much. So when that asks you to colour in 1/3, 1 part out of 3, you have to imagine that this is in 3s and you're colouring in 1 part out of 3. So you're colouring in this whole bit here, because that's out of the 3 people, that's one person's part. And you're going to colour it in. In this one, it's the same idea, except this time you're colouring in 2 parts out of 3. So this will be one person's part, this will be another, and this will be another. And out of the 3 people, you're colouring in 2 of their parts. So then when we go on to question 3, it wants to know what fraction of each set is coloured. So again, it's like the one above. These are broken into 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But they have only coloured in 1 part. So this is 1 part, this is 1 part, and this is 1 part. So they have actually only coloured in 1 part out of 3. So it'll look like this: 1 out of 3, 1/3. The example we'll show you up here. They've got a bigger one. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They've got 12 parts altogether, but they've divided into 3 equal parts, and 1/3 of the set is coloured, because out of 3, only 1 part is coloured, so it's 1/3. If you wrote the fraction as 4 out of 12, that's not wrong, because that's still right. It is still 4 parts out of 12 parts are coloured in. That's 4/12, and that's another fraction. It means the same as 1/3 though. So they're trying to get you to be able to break it down just by looking at it. Because if you're imagining that they're people and this is their parts each, let's say they're Maltesers, one person is getting all these ones, one person's getting these ones, one person's getting these ones. So they've only coloured in this person's ones. So that's 1 person out of 3. And it's still 4 Maltesers out of 12 altogether, but they're looking for the smallest number. So 1 part out of altogether 3 parts. Down here, this is 1 part, this is 1 part, this is 1 part. So again, 1 part out of 3 altogether is coloured in. Now they put the line in here to divide it for you and show you that's a part, that's a part, that's a part. But even without the line, if you look down here at a bigger one, you can see that's a part. So is this. So is this. And they all match exactly. So you can see that 1 part out of 1, 2, 3 parts, or 1/3, is coloured in. Now, when you get down to 4, it might be a little bit harder. So they want to know what 1/3 of 6 is, okay? Some people might be able to do it in their head, or they might be able to use the ones above, because if you look up here, this is 1/3 of 6. This is 1 part out of, there's 6 altogether. It's divided into thirds, and 1 part out of 3 parts is coloured, and we can see that it's 1, 2. The other way to do this is, there's 2 ways. I'm going to show you. You can either draw them out yourself, which a lot of people will do it this way. So 1/3 of 6. I'm going to draw 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. After I've drawn 6, I need to first find a way to split it into thirds. So into 1 part out of 3 parts. So there's 3 people I'm sharing these between, and they need a part each. So I'm going to split it here. That might take a while for you to figure out if you're looking at it, but I know that's fair. Let's say there's 3 brothers. He's going to get 2, he's going to get 2, and he's going to get 2. So it's exactly split between 3 people. 1 part out of 3, 1 part out of 3, 1 part out of 3, or 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Then they want to know what 1/3 of 6 is. So I'm going to colour them in to help me. And I can see that 1/3 out of 6 is 2. That's the first way to do it. Now the second way to do it is more with using your tables. So 1/3 of 6, okay? The way to do it is I take this big number and I divide it by the number on the bottom. So I'm going to divide 6 by 3. Okay, how many times does 3 fit into 6? Let's check with our tables. 3, 6, exactly 2. And that's my answer. If they were asking for 2/3, like down here, there's another part to the process. So I'm going to pretend this time they want 2/3 of 6, okay? I'm going to do it the first way again, first to show you that way. So I'm going to draw 6. Okay, figure out my way to split them evenly into 3s. So here again, 1 person out of 3 gets 2, 1 person out of 3 gets 2, 1 person out of 3 gets 2. If I colour it in, this time I want 2/3, so I want to know about 2 people's parts. So I've got, that's 1 person, that's 2, and I don't care about those ones. So I figured out that 2/3 of 6 is 4. That's the way with colouring them in. The other way with your tables, you are going to get the big number again. You are going to divide it by the bottom, but then you multiply it by the top. The reason I didn't multiply it by the top the last time is because the number on top was 1, and we know that anything multiplied by 1 stays the same, so there's no point. So if you're asked for 1/3 of anything, you only have to do one of the steps. So 6 divided by 3 again, because I'm dividing by the bottom. How many times does 3 fit into 6? 3, 6, twice. I'm nearly there. Now I need to, I've divided by the bottom, I need to multiply by the top. So this answer, 2, I'm going to multiply it by 2. Down here, 2 multiplied by 2 equals 2, 4. It's the same answer. So whichever way you want to do that with fractions, you can. You can either use the tables, or you can use drawing it out like they did in the book and figuring it out that way. Both ways are perfect, and they're both right as well. Then onto this page, it is asking you divide each set into 3 equal parts and colour 1/3 of each set. So you have to divide all of these into 3 equal parts. So there's 3 people sharing them and they need the same amount each. Ones like this are going to be easy because you can see that they're going to get exactly 1 each. And then they want to know, after you've coloured in 1 part out of 3 parts, how many did you colour in? So here I'll do this one, for example, 1/3 of 9. Okay, I'm going to draw it on the board. So it's drawn like this. You're better off drawing it in your copy as well. So they want you to divide it into 3 parts. You can do it either way. I can see, looking at this, if there's 3 people sharing this amount, that they're going to get 1 block each. I could go that way or that way, but I'm going to divide them down here. Okay, so it's exactly even. Each person is going to get 3 each, because I can already see it, but just to be sure, I'm going to colour it in. And then underneath it says 1/3 of 9 equals blank. So all I need to do is figure out, what does 1/3 of 9 equal? So if I've got 9 altogether, 1 part out of 3 gives me 1, 2, 3. That's all that it's asking you. The other way that you could do that, if you want to use your tables, how many times does 3 fit into 9? 3, 6, 9. You would have got 3 as well, because that's 9 divided by 3. We didn't have to do the multiply part because there's a 1 on the top. But when you first start off with fractions, you're probably more comfortable with doing it by looking at them, so that's completely fine. Now you have to do the same with these ones, even though they're bigger. It might look like it's harder, but you just have to find out how to split these big ones into 1 part out of 3, 1 part out of 3, 1 part out of 3. So it means that 3 people are sharing and they're getting the same amount each. So it might not be down like these were down. It might not be like that. Just have a look at them and see how you could split them so that 3 people are getting it and they're getting the same amount each. And then on question 2, it's the same thing, except they've got flowers or cubes or boxes or whatever instead. So divide each set into 3 equal parts. Again, you'll have to draw it out and divide them with a line through them. And then they want to know 1 part out of 3 equals, and you can check. 2 parts out of 3 equals, and you can check.